Hi! I don't know where to start really. For a long time I have been saying that I was going to do a video talking about my story and my history with depression. It's quite a tough subject to tackle, and it's something that I really wanted to talk about, but I wanted to make sure that I was in a place where it was calm and relaxed and I could talk without worrying, and I could just talk. Depression is something that affects millions and millions and millions and millions of people. I think that it affects so many people that you wouldn't even know about, whether it's an ongoing depression or whether it's a one-off depression. My story of depression started when I was a kid. I think it started around the time my mum died, but it may actually have started before that. And of course, when I was a kid, I didn't know that it was depression. I just knew that I felt sad and I felt like nobody loved me and I felt very isolated and alone. And then when my mum died, things got worse, and things got worse because in my family, no one really knew what to do. I didn't know my mum was going to die. And so instead of us kind of coming together as a family and trying to find a solution, everyone kind of went their separate ways. So I was a 9-year-old child who I was scared that I would upset my dad if I cried in front of him, so I never did that. So I'd go to school, come home, lock myself in my room and cry and cry and cry and cry and cry. Depression for me got worse when I was at secondary school. I will honestly say, hand on my heart, that until the last year or so, I had not dealt with my mum's death. So for years, it's been a huge thing for me. When I was at secondary school, I was bullied for being fat. And I would do the same pattern always. I would go home, I would cry, and no one knew about it. I didn't tell anyone, I didn't want anybody to know. It was like I felt like it was my burden and I couldn't share it. And also I was embarrassed. I didn't want people to know that I was weak. I wanted people to think that I was strong, and that's even as a kid. So when I was at secondary school, probably in year 9, I developed an eating disorder, and I had anorexia, bulimia, purging, and that continued to be prevalent in my life for 10 years. And when I was at my worst, it was all consuming. The depression was all consuming, the eating disorder was all consuming, everything. Like I didn't do anything. I just was trying to cope with, I didn't understand. It was just, depression is something that you feel like you don't understand. It's like this cloud of fog in your mind, and you can't shift it, like no matter how much you want to, and it can make you feel lethargic and tired and like you've got no drive, and like there's just no point. There's no point in existing. And I definitely had thoughts of not wanting to be here anymore. That's the way that I would explain it. I don't want to be here anymore. That was how I thought, that was how I felt. And I kind of fantasized about not being here anymore and about being with my mum. And that was, I just miss my mum so much. And I would still, as an adult, as in my 20s, I would be curled up in bed, bawling my eyes out. It affected relationships, it affected everything. And I was still busy portraying this confident, happy person to the outside, but inside I was just falling apart. Throughout the years, I've seen various different therapists. I didn't find that many of them particularly helpful until the last one that I saw, who was a psychotherapist. And I think that's because I was ready to deal with me. I was ready to deal with my mum's death. I was ready to deal with everything. And so I was in control at that point, and I realized I was in control. Depression wasn't in control. Let's go back a bit. So I was living in this kind of just cloud of misery and depression and bulimia, and not talking to anybody, not telling anybody, and just being so unhappy with myself, so unconfident. And I got a job as a presenter for a gaming channel and it happened completely by mistake because I was so shy. I'll talk about that in another video. And again, I could be something on camera, I could be something in front of people, but I was not that person. I was partly that person, but this depression is just there. Like, it was there and I was carrying it around the whole time, and then it would move in, and then that's it, you're back down here again. With the job, things had started to get a little bit better, because I had to be places, I had to do things. I wasn't just sitting motionless and thinking about eating food all the time. I had stuff to do, and I was exercising, and that really helped me. And then my sister came to see me. She'd been traveling and she was back, and she came to see me, and she sat down with me, and she said to me that she had breast cancer. She was 25 when she was diagnosed with breast cancer, and that was it. That was it then. Because I still, like, thinking about those times takes me back to the emotional state of those times. She told me that she had breast cancer, and I couldn't comprehend it. My mind was like, no way, no, I don't understand it, I can't. But being typical Clara, I put a smile on my face and decided that publicly I'd be strong and confident and this was going to be okay. But actually I was completely falling apart, and I started suffering with vertigo, not fear of heights vertigo, vertigo where you get dizzy, your spatial awareness is a little bit fucked. And I went to see the doctor, and they're like, oh, it's just, you know, a result of labyrinthitis, which is an ear infection, and it will go away. Fast forward 6 weeks and it hadn't gone away. I was struggling to drive. I was this point working for Sky, doing their live gaming stuff, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't be live on TV because I kept feeling like I was gonna faint and pass out. And what I didn't realise at the time, because I was so stubborn, is that what was happening as a result of this vertigo is that I was then having massive panic attacks. But I was adamant I wasn't having a panic attack because there's nothing wrong with me. Panic attacks happen to people who, you know, have got anxiety, and I don't have that, and it's not for me, and I'm not going to acknowledge it, and that's rubbish. There must be something else wrong with me. And I was so certain that there was something else wrong with me at this time that I paid £1,500 to have a brain scan. The reason I did this is because I was so adamant that this was not a panic attack, that something was wrong with me. And I was at my dad's house, and I'd gone on his computer on the internet, and I'd looked up brain tumours, and I'd seen all of the symptoms you have for brain tumours, and I decided that I had a brain tumour. I went back upstairs, sat next to my dad, and all of a sudden my breathing started to get really, I couldn't feel my arms, then I couldn't feel my legs, and I was screaming. My dad had to call an ambulance. I was taken to hospital, and obviously they checked me out and said there was nothing wrong with me. Again, someone suggested a panic attack. I was like, no way, I don't have those, I am fine, I am strong. So then I paid for this brain scan. Because I was adamant that something's wrong. Obviously the brain scan came back clear. So I had to start accepting that I was not good. I had to give up my job because I couldn't drive anymore. I had to stop driving. My sister, at the start of her cancer treatment, we were all hopeful. I was spending time with her in hospital. I was sleeping in the bed next to her. I was sleeping on the floor. I didn't leave until they kicked me out. And I was always the joker. I was there to make her happy. I was there to make her smile. But then when I left, I'd be frightened. I'd be scared. And my sister's battle with cancer was 6.5 years. And it was 6.5 years of her suffering. It was 6.5 years of failed treatments. It was 6.5 years of operations and recovery. It was 6.5 years of seeing her fall apart. And it was 6.5 years of being absolutely helpless to do anything about it. And it was during these times when I went to the doctor and they gave me antidepressants. And I think the longest time I took them for was probably about 5 days, and I just thought, no, I don't want, this is not what I want. I'm not saying it's wrong for other people, but I don't want this. Like I really felt like there was another option, there was another way for me to do things, to deal with things. And so I didn't take them, and I think maybe 2 or 3 times that happened where I was prescribed the antidepressants and then I just wouldn't take them. And then it got to the point where my sister was really ill, and she was really, really suffering. And she had lymphedema, so her arm had swollen and it was like the same size as my leg, and my sister was really little, like my thigh. Her arm was huge, she had to carry it like this, and her neck was swollen, and she had all tumours on her neck. And she had to have an operation because she had liquid on her heart and lungs. And I had a boyfriend at the time, and when this was going on, I found out that he was cheating on me, that he had another girlfriend. And when I found that out, he just bailed basically, and I didn't really hear from him again, even though I'd known him for like 5 years. My sister was then transferred to another hospital in London, University College Hospital, and I was the only one in my family who lived in London, so I would be there as much as I could, which was every day for as many hours as I could around work or around interviews or anything else. And this is all the time when I was doing stuff on Grime Daily, so if people were watching my videos at that time, all of this was going on behind the scenes. And in that hospital was some of the best times, but also some of the hardest times, because I used to look at my sister and just think, she can't survive. Like, how can she survive? Her arm, they can't ever drain your arm once you have lymphedema, so her arm was always going to be that big, and it was getting worse and worse. She could hardly walk, and she was in so much pain. And I would sit with her, and then at 11 o'clock is when I had to leave, and I would get on the tube, and that is when I really felt like I just can't do this. I can't be here. I can't keep existing like this. I can't be miserable and unhappy anymore. I can't do it. I can't keep living like this, because it affects so much of your life, and you don't even know who you are anymore. You're consumed with sadness and misery. And then that was like in the October, November time, and in between then and when my sister died in the January, she was in and out of a hospice. Sometimes she'd be at home, but it was so hard. It would take us so long to get her comfortable. And I think for me, like that time, my head was just a complete blurry mess, because you're trying to live your life, and you know, you've got dreams and aspirations. You don't want to miss time with your sister because you don't know how much time you have left, and you've got this dark cloud that's just following you around everywhere. And so it was just a horrible period of my life. Even though it started when I was 9, the whole thing was just, don't get me wrong, there was good times, there was times I was happy, and that's the thing with depression, you're not constantly depressed. You have moments of clarity, moments of beauty, moments of joy, but you're just waiting for it to come back. My sister passed away in January, and I had, I was just heartbroken, and I used to text her phone saying help, because she was my big sister, and I knew that she loved me for who I was and what I was. She didn't judge me, and I just wanted her back. And there was no way to do that, but you can't, when someone's gone like that and you really want to talk to them and you can't. It's the most painful thing. And I considered like ending my life so I could be with my mum and I could be with my sister,
But I also knew that I was lucky to be alive. I had this life and they didn't have the opportunity, and I felt like if I left I would be really selfish and I would be giving up a great opportunity to experience amazing things that they never had the chance. After my sister died, I just went into work mode, work crazy, to try and avoid, I guess, being myself, being with my thoughts. I read an amazing book called On Grief and Grieving after my sister died, which really helped a lot. I think that the way that I dealt with my sister's death was completely different than the way I dealt with my mum's death, and that's because I was an adult when my sister died, so I was able to deal with it differently. For the first time in my life, I started talking to people, I started to talk to my friends, I started to rely on my friends. My two best friends, Catalina and Louise, were amazing support posts for me, and I'd never talked to them like that before, and I'd never been open with them before, but I needed their help, I needed their support. And whereas I'd never wanted to say that before, I'd never wanted to admit that before, I was done with being miserable. When my sister died, before she died, she told me that she thought she had given herself breast cancer because she'd believed since my mum died that she would get breast cancer and die. And I was really angry with her for thinking that. But I also wondered if there was any truth in that, and I felt that I didn't want to be negative, I didn't want to be miserable, I didn't want to be unhappy, I didn't want to always be feeling bad about myself, I didn't want to be looking at the worst, I didn't want to be depressed. So began a journey that is still ongoing with me now. I remember that not long after my sister died, when we were filming the Heart to Hearts, that someone that I knew decided to sit me down and tell me that people had been saying to them that they thought that I was arrogant, that I was cold, that I was rude. And I absolutely lost it. I lost it. Now, bearing in mind that I had been holding on to everything for so long because I didn't want people to know that I was weak. I guess that's how I felt about it. I didn't want anyone to know. I wanted to just, it was for me, it wasn't for anybody else. I cried in front of this person. I just lost it. I didn't have control anymore. Whereas in the past I'd had control. After my sister died, that control started to lapse. And I think since then I've cried in front of a lot of people. But when he told me that, honestly, I finished my work that I had to do. I cried, finished my work that I had to do, got in my car and I cried for the 1.5-hour drive home. I got into bed and I did not get out of bed for 3 days. I laid in bed and I just was so upset because I was so concerned with what other people thought about me. I didn't want them to not like me. I wanted people to like me and to love me. And it just knocked me for 6. And I was like, right, I'm giving up. I can't do this anymore. I can't be this anymore. And I was just in this place of misery for so long. And that was a constant kind of cycle for me, that I'd go right back down and I'd be talking to my friends and I'd be saying, you know, this is never going to work out, all the worst case scenarios. And then I knew that I didn't want to be like that. So, but it's not like a light switch. For me, it wasn't anyway. It was a gradual process of going, right, okay, I am not depression. Depression is not me. It's like a cloud in a sky, it passes and then it goes, but I'm still here. So me, I am not depression. Depression is something that happens to me and I don't want it to happen to me anymore, and I want things to change. And it's been 4.5 years now of books, meditation, exercises and exercise, and just trial and error and trying this and trying that and doing this and doing that and talking to this person and talking to that person. I went to see a therapist a couple of months before I went traveling, actually, because I was just feeling so lost. I wasn't depressed, but I was feeling completely lost. I don't know what to do. I don't know if I want to continue on this career path or if I want to do something completely different. And I was feeling like I wanted to go traveling, but people were telling me that was crazy. So I was like, ah! And I went to see this therapist, and when I'd done therapy in the past, I never cried in front of a therapist because, again, I was keeping my front nice and strong, as you do. So I went there and I was really honest, and I just went, ugh, I've had enough. Have it. Let's deal with it. Let's do this. Let's get it out on the table and let's deal with it. And those 2 months were really amazing and really helpful. And now, as much as you've just seen me cry throughout this video, I cry because when I talk about those times, it's like I'm back in those times, if that makes sense. But I don't suffer with depression anymore. And I feel so positive about my future because I realised that it was me. I was the one who changed things. I did it, not anybody else. I did it because I wanted to. I changed my situation. And it may have taken me a long time, but what I realise is that if I look back to that time, the time that I'm talking about to you, I was a completely different person in a completely different place. And I have managed to get myself to this point, and I'm excited about the future because if I can get here, I can keep going, I can keep learning, I can keep growing. And that's really exciting. And I just want to say to you right now that if you are suffering with depression, anxiety, any other form of mental illness, get some help. It's something that makes you feel like you're completely on your own and no one else has ever felt like that. Rubbish. Loads of people have. People you would never even have expected have suffered from a mental illness in some kind of way. So please talk to somebody. Do something about it, because I'm telling you that your life doesn't have to be like that. You might think you've got this depression and you can never get rid of it. Of course you can. You can. Promise you can. If I can do it, you can do it. We are no different. I tried. That's the difference. I tried and I didn't give up. And other people might have tried to succeed in a career and never given up. If the one thing that I have done in my life is tried at getting rid of being depressed and anxious and unhappy and miserable, and I've succeeded, then I feel like that's the biggest success that I can ever have. So I'm reaching out to everyone to say, please do not be afraid to talk about depression. Please do not think that you are on your own. We really need to be more open and honest and stop being so fucking stupid, to be honest, and thinking that I can't tell somebody because they're going to judge me, they're going to think that I'm a weak person. It's all bollocks. You're not. You're a human. You're just a human. And depression happens to humans, but it is not human. So please, you don't have to live your life like this. Make sure that you get some help, and make sure that you talk to people, and make sure you express yourself, because even doing that can make you feel so much better. I know. I feel better after doing this, and I feel better for sharing. I hope that this video helps one of you just to feel a little bit better and just to go out and seek some help, and to realise that you're not depressed. You are not depressed. Depression is happening to you, but you are not depressed, okay? You are not depressed. And that in this life you can do anything you want to do. Do not let depression be the thing that stops you, because that's not an excuse. You got this. You can do it. Thanks for watching this video. I wanted to be really open and honest with you guys about my journey, my story of depression. There are some amazing books that helped me on my journey, and I will be doing a video about those at another time. Thanks for the love. Please make sure you like, share the video. Got an itchy nose. And of course, subscribe to my channel. Mwah.